Okay, welcome to another G4 Guitar. We're calling this G4 Guitar TV. What we're doing is we're going to talk about different topics to do with the business of teaching guitar in general, and the kind of things that you can do to improve your guitar teaching and guitar teaching business. Got some of the G4 Guitar members here today who are going to go through a few topics. The main topic, or the first topic that's been raised, is how to get referrals, and there is a technique to getting referral business, and once you understand it and can apply it, then you'll notice that your student numbers will actually grow exponentially. And if I go just give you a 30-second history of what happened to me when I started G4 back in 2005, and I'd been teaching for many years. I'd learned about referrals. I had, those kind of things in place, but I was mostly doing private teaching, so referral rates were a bit slower to grow. But once I went to group teaching, which was with G4 in late 2005, I really put these things into play, and it took about 9 months to get to 100 students, and then it exploded from there. And that was because of the referral, almost like a viral way of referring, getting students. So what we'll do is we'll go through that today. But if you've got any questions regarding it or examples that you can throw in that you've used, I know a couple of you guys have had success with referrals, so I'll talk about that as well. And I think using examples is a really good way to go. So first of all, if we just break it down and have a look at let me ask you the question, and that'll sort of break it down. Have you referred anyone recently to any kind of business, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be an app online, or a good book to read, a video to watch? I'll just go through each of you and just see if you can give me an example. I'll start with you, Ben. Ben, can you give me an example of something where you've referred someone to something?
I guess for me, yeah, I guess specific online, guitar lessons and that sort of thing in, for teaching certain styles. I referred that to another guitarist, and that sort of thing.
Yep. Okay, cool. So you've referred them on to something that is going to help them out. So
yeah.
So what? Okay, cool. I'll just go through. I'll get an example from each of you, and then I'll elaborate on it. David, what's an example that you can give of something you've referred recently?
Sounds crazy. I referred something to a juicer machine which I'm using.
Okay, cool, excellent.
At the weekend, that's the one that immediately springs to mind. There's probably others, but that's the one that jumps straight in.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I get that. I might ask you what that is later. Okay, and Joachim, what's something or some product or whatever that you've referred to somebody else, a friend or someone you know?
I do yoga almost every day. So, and I go to a studio just not far from where I live, and I often refer people, talk about how great it is.
Yep. Okay, great. So, in order to refer them, and I'll just sort of, again, I'll throw some questions, but I'll ask you a different question. Ben, in order to refer someone to what you were talking about, how did you refer them? Did you give them a link to a website? Did you give them something physical? Did you write it down? How did you actually refer them?
Yeah, well, obviously just spoke to them, mentioned it to them, and then they were interested, and then sent them a link to the website.
Okay, good, excellent. So the product or the way you refer them, why did you refer them? What was the motivation for you to tell them? Did they ask you about it, or did you think, well, I know this person, I know that they would probably want this product or could benefit like I did from it? What was the motivation behind referring?
Yeah, I think definitely. We're always hungry for new resources and inspiration. With music and guitar, so I thought that was something they would benefit from for sure.
Okay, cool.
And
so it's almost like
we both refer each other to different resources as well.
Fantastic. Yeah. I can relate to that because I've got one friend in particular who we're always sort of throwing things back, back and forth. He'll hear a particular song or a particular musician, and he'll say, "Check this guy out," or check that album out. Yeah. So, yeah, he's really my main source when it comes to new things. I mean, I obviously have other sources, but he's my main source, and yeah, I look forward to what he's got to offer. And it's almost like we're trying to. It's almost an exchange of barter system where he gives me something, so I feel I've got to find something to give back to him in terms of referral. Yeah. Okay, cool. David, in your case with the juicer, what was the motivation for referring?
The motivation for it was, I mean, he was looking for something, and it basically, we have one, and it's just phenomenal. It works exactly what it does. It does the job, but it's perfect,
Right. What's it called?
It's basically it's a blender to make smoothies and juicing, for like health drinks and stuff.
Yep.
Yes.
And what brand? Do you know? Have you?
It's called a what do they call it? It's called a NutriBullet.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Just because I'm sure, I'm curious, so I want to see what it is anyway. So that, okay. Cool.
If you Google it, it'll come up.
Okay, no worries. Well, it's on record now, so I'll be able to find it. NutriBullet. Okay, cool. Joachim, what was your motivation for referring?
Just because I go there every day, and I really like, it's a great, they have great teachers there, and it's great classes.
Okay. But what about the person you're giving it to, like referring to? Did you feel that they would benefit from it? They would. Why tell them? Is that? Yep.
Yeah, well, they know they mentioned they go to yoga, and I said, hey, you should try this place because it's quite good.
Okay, cool. All right. So the reason I'm doing this exercise is because once you kind of understand why you refer people, it gives you a clue into why other people will refer your business, and you've got to find that kind of thing which is going to get people who are within your students to refer you. The thing, if we sort of look at the other side of it, and I'll go back to you, Joachim, on this one, why wouldn't you refer someone? Why would you be cautious about referring, say you went to a restaurant or a different yoga class somewhere else? What would stop you from referring that to a friend?
It's not very good.
Okay, yeah, cool, not good. Ben, what would you say? What's another reason why you wouldn't refer?
Just through, you'll elaborate on that, I guess, is the experience that you get from things like customer service or the equipment is faulty and that sort of thing.
So something with a question mark, something where you're kind of thinking, I'm not 100% on this. I don't want to set my friend up for disappointment and have them come back to me, because we know what that feels like when a friend refers us to something. There was a restaurant that my wife and I went to not long ago, and a friend of hers referred to us, and we went there, and it was pretty ordinary, and we were kind of disappointed. We didn't go back to the friend and go, hey, you sent us to this restaurant, it was terrible. But it was that, I wouldn't refer someone to that restaurant based on the experience that we had. So, sometimes we have to be thinking about why wouldn't people refer our business, because that's often something that's not thought about in when you're building your business. Is when you look at your business, one of the surveys that they do, one of the studies that they do on judging a business is how likely, and this is the prime question, how likely are you to refer this business to a friend? And that's a very strong rating that's done the quality or the likelihood that a business will succeed. And there's a company who specializes in this, where they actually go around and they survey people about a particular company and ask them that question: how likely are you to refer this business onto a friend? And based on that survey, it gives them an idea of the likelihood that that business is going to succeed long term. So if you find that you're not getting many referrals and your students aren't referring your school on to other people, then there's something that's missing. Either there's a reason that they're not happy with the business, which is actually the most unlikely reason, because you're probably doing a reasonable job. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, because for people to actually refer your business doesn't mean that something's wrong with your business. It just means that there's not enough there to inspire them to want to refer it to somebody else. Sometimes it can be not having the easy to find, say your website's difficult to find, just the way that they have to refer, it's just an effort for them to do it, or they're a bit confused about what you do. They're still not sure how reliable your product is, how reliable you are. There's just these question marks around your product that are sort of stopping them from pushing and motivating your business, referring your business on, having the motivation to do that. So one of the things that I did, and I read this research years ago, but one of the things that I did was that I started creating a checklist of things, just a list of all the things that I would have done, or what I do when I go to a business, and what motivates me to refer that business. Because to be quite honest, I would say 1 in maybe 20 businesses that I deal with do I actually refer. And if you think about it, it's probably the same. So whenever you refer a business, or even on the other side, don't refer a business, ask yourself why. What is it about this business that makes me want to refer them? And what is it this business that makes me not want to refer them? So if you think about, I think music is a great example. There was, just trying to think of the one example. There was something like, I think this was one of the examples. It was something like ABBA. When I was a kid, based on my age, ABBA were very popular with young kids, and I was a young kid, so we were into those early ABBA songs, and we thought they were pretty damn cool. But once you got to 12 or 13, even if you were still listening to ABBA, which a lot of people were, you didn't talk about it. It was something you didn't admit to. Even though you'd go to your friends' places and you'd sort of look through their record collection and you'd find an ABBA record, and they go, "Hey, dude, you got an ABBA record in your collection." So by that time we're into Led Zeppelin, we're into Van Halen, we're into all the cool stuff. So you didn't go back and say things like the Bee Gees, Saturday Night Fever, or Grease, or ABBA, or those kind of things. You didn't admit to actually liking or listening to any of that music. So it didn't get referred beyond that point. It already had its heyday, so to speak, so it was out there, but it was also, pushed through other channels, but through my sort of age group, and we were too cool for that stuff. So there's things that you've got to look at from that point of view. Is you might be doing a very good job, but are you giving that perception of something that they think is cool and that they want to refer on to their friends? And that could come from little things like the way your studio's decked out, the way you dress, the way you talk, your attitude. They want to perceive you as somebody who's worth referring. That they're not going to turn around and go, "Hey man, that dude's not cool at all." That's what you're trying to think about. All these factors. That's just one area. There's other areas as well. Well, let me throw it at you. What would be a detractor? Let me go through each of you. I'll start with you, Ben. What would be a detractor for someone not to refer your business? Saying your business personally, because I'm sure your business is perfect, but if somebody else's guitar studio, if they were to go there, what would be a detractor, you think, for your target audience?
Location and environment for the current studio that I have. I know for a fact needs improvement. So that'd be the main factor for me at this stage, is accessibility and and environment.
Yep. Okay, cool. So the location, I think, is a huge one. And often goes, when you think about a restaurant, for instance, if you said, "Oh, there's this great little restaurant, it's down some back alley, you got to go 3 floors up, you got to knock on the door 4 times, and you got to speak, Chinese or something to get in. You got to use a secret password." People go, "Oh God, that's a lot of stuff to remember." But if you say it's in the main street, right next to, the post office, everybody knows where it is. So it makes it easy and accessible. and that's what you are really looking for is with location. So I get that and that's why having a commercial location is very good for referrals, because it creates that you're in the center of town. So that's one. The environment, yes, the environment of your studio, the environment of your entrance, everything that they see and come in contact with is part of it. So David, what would you throw in there? What was something that would, think it even from your own experience, what is something that would detract you if you went into somebody's studio to learn guitar?
If it was disorganized and untidy.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's amazing how that goes underestimated. If I, when I teach, the thing that I always did was take everything out of the room that wasn't necessary. And I just had everything, and I would actually literally, I had fold up chairs and stands and everything, and I would literally put everything in the corner, neatly stacked away. When I had finished at the end of the day, and when I came to start my shift, I would bring it out again. And so I kept it very plain. I had some posters of some guitar players, and that was about it. And I kept it very simple. And I found that it's better to have less, to take almost the Apple approach of keep it very, very minimal, than having lots of stuff that makes it feel cluttered and confusing and overcrowded and potentially messy. Because whatever your standard is, there's going to be people who have higher, I'm not going to say higher standards, just say different standards, have different standards of what they think is tidy, what they think is clean. And so you can try and the further you go along that kind of spectrum of keeping it tidy and clean, then the less likely you are to get someone who's going to go, I wouldn't go there, I wouldn't refer that business because it's not as neat and tidy and clean as I would like. And a good way to do that is just, find a friend. Fortunately, my wife is that person. She's being Japanese and being the way she's a clean freak. She's the kind of person who will literally clean the house every second day. But she's someone who I could say, well, what do you think? Is this good enough? And she would go, no, it needs this and needs that. So if you know someone like that, occasionally just get them to come around and say, what would you do? Because people won't tell you in most cases because they don't want to offend you. But if you openly invite them to tell you and look at your studio, then they can give you those clues. And that could potentially shift things for a certain amount of students. And these are just the boxes you tick. The more of these boxes you tick, the more likely you are to get referrals. Okay, Joachim, what's something that you would add?
If you're teaching is okay but not great, like if it's just average, if you're maybe not on time always, or if you cancel lessons or things like that.
Brilliant. Yep. Even just little things like being on time, that's a huge one, because if you, and this is one of the things that I was always absolutely punctual about, and as you know, with these meetings, I'm always here on time. I don't start late. I don't even start early. I make sure that I start on time, because that's what people expect. And it's the same with most things. I even find it annoying with TV shows when they schedule it to be on a particular time, and then it comes on 5 minutes, 10 minutes later even, and they've been doing that, the TV stations, to try and get you watching the commercials. They say it starts at 7:30. Football games especially do it. Game starts at 7:30 and you turn it on, it doesn't start till 8 o'clock, and they spend 30 minutes throwing up commercials and all sorts of things. And they don't realize that they're actually putting people off. And it's the same with your teaching, is that once so once people see that you're not punctual and you're starting late, that irritates them, and then they're not going to refer you because they have this bad kind of image of you. And it may be nothing to do with your lessons, it's just the fact that you're starting late all the time and not on time. So it's not. Sorry.
I was just asking, say if you're 5 minutes late, is that still bad, or is it
still bad?
How?
Still bad.
Yeah, still bad.
Yep. 1 minute late is still bad. Okay. The best time to start is on time, and you know, people have less and less tolerance. And the thing is that if you start on time, then nobody's going to be upset. If you start 1 minute late, some people will be a bit annoyed. Start 2 minutes late, more likely more people will be annoyed. Start 5 minutes late, and so on. So everyone has a kind of a threshold of where they will get annoyed. So always aim to start on time. The more you can start on time, then the less problems you will have. Interestingly enough, you know, countries like Japan, their trains run pretty well right on the second. You know, they come in and they leave, bang, right on time. So that they don't have this kind of tolerance for being 5 minutes, 10 minutes late, which we know in Sydney with the trains happens all the time. You know, in Sydney they sort of boast that trains today, 85% of the time they're on time. It's like, well, what about 100% of the time? You know, that's what people would prefer. They don't tell you that the other 15 minutes of the time the trains can be up to 10, 15, 20 minutes late, can be cancelled. You know, so that's, and they used to be worse, of course, and they've improved. But especially with computers and the way the world is running technologically, sure, we should be more patient. Everyone should just calm down, you know, chill out a little bit. But the reality is that, you know, time for most people is a very precious commodity. And any time that you take away from them, they resent. So if you're running late, so imagine you're running 10 minutes late in your lessons, then that's 10 minutes that a parent has to wait. It's 10 minutes that the student has to sort of hang around. So it causes a snowball effect, and especially once you're late for the first student, then you're late for the second, the third, etc. It goes on right throughout your day. So yeah, really run on time. And if for some reason you run over time, then you've got to try and reel it in somehow. And obviously you don't want to punish the next class because, you know, let's just say your first class is 5 minutes late, then your second class, cutting their lesson 5 minutes short is a bit unfair because they paid for half an hour like everybody else. So, but what you've got to do, and I've been in this situation on the odd occasion, very rarely, but on the odd occasion it happened, I would simply say to those students, what I'm going to do is give you a voucher or something for a workshop, or I'm going to do an extra lesson for you guys because I need to get back on time. And that was the kind of thing I would do. I would compensate them for that 5 minutes. So yeah, on time is a big one. So once you tick all those boxes, you will cover most areas of why they won't. The chances of them not referring you. So that's what you want to do first, is make sure that you're not giving them reasons to not refer you. But it still doesn't mean that they're going to refer you, because to refer you they have to again have a reason, and it has to be something that is really part of the way that you operate. Now, if we go to McDonald's and we use them, and just about every company in the world who has this referral, kind of viral referral, and you might think McDonald's is not a referral business, but it actually is. McDonald's grew rapidly because people would tell their friends or invite their friends along for certain reasons. So let's use McDonald's as an example, because and I often use McDonald's as an example, not because of the food, not because of you know, they're making us all healthy and happy, but because they're such a successful business model. So let's drill down on why people refer McDonald's. So can anyone give me a reason? Just put up your hand if you got a reason and tell me any reason you think someone would refer McDonald's. David. Yeah.
It's consistent. You know what you're going to get every time you walk in there.
Brilliant. Exactly. So when you recommend it to a friend, you know they're going to get pretty well the same service you got. It's not going to be a different experience. So it's very easy to say, look, go to McDonald's because I'm not telling you that the food's good. I'm not telling you that it's great. I'm just telling you that you'll get served, it's clean, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it's consistent. Any other reasons? I think you guys probably don't refer anyone to McDonald's, so like me, but it's more just looking at the business model. But if we look, things like the children's parties were huge. You know, that McDonald's were really the first to do that. So it gave people a reason to tell their friends to come to McDonald's. You know, we'll be there at McDonald's having a children's party.
Ice cream cake. The ice cream cake was legendary.
Yes, yes. There you go. Yeah. When I was a kid, they had this, and I still remember it to this day. They used to have this thing where if you could say 2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, you could do it in less than 20 seconds. They would give you free fries or throw something in. It was kind of a promotion. So we were all at school. Here we are as 10-year-old kids all trying to beat each other on the 2 all beef patty, special sauce, blah 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 blah. To see who could do it the quickest. So that became viral. That was a way that we were all referring McDonald's. Very clever. And these are the kind of things. McDonald's themselves are not. We're not going to say McDonald's are clever. McDonald's just hire clever people to do these things. And one of the best ways that you can become good at getting referrals within your business is to learn these things. Is to read books on how. There's a great book that you can read called The Referral Engine, just like it sounds, The Referral Engine. Have a read of that book. That guy's really an expert on getting referrals, and I certainly learned a few tricks from that book. But what you're really trying to do is make your business into something where each and every one of your clients is so happy with what you're doing, because it's really a reflection of how good that you are performing. If we're musicians, and we know when you go to a great concert, and to be quite honest, it annoys me when people tell me, but they still they go to a great concert, oh, what a magic concert, blah blah blah. When he played that solo, it was just awesome. Everyone was just like on their feet and screaming. And so, yeah, that's great, dude. I wasn't there, so I don't need to know. But they still want to tell you anyway, and that's the difference with businesses that get referral. And that's what you want to be doing, is that you want to have it so that your clients, your students, become raving fans. And it's not even to get the referrals, it's just to know if they're out there raving about you, then that's when you know you're doing a good job. And I go back to, and as you know, I often talk about my first guitar teacher, who is still amazing. He wasn't my first guitar teacher, but he was the first one who really took me from being a hacker. But everyone in the neighborhood was talking about him. Until this day, we still, whenever I talk to those guys back then, we still talk about him. He's still a great guy. He's still doing stuff. He lives on the Gold Coast. But he was just an awesome teacher, and very inspiring, and got us all playing together and playing in bands, and he really brought the local community together. So this created a real kind of viral effect. And when someone connects you, then they become very important to you, that they become the connector. So the person, you make a good friend through somebody else, and that person becomes pivotal in your life, even though you sometimes it's subconscious. And the same can happen with your businesses, with the grouping and bringing people together and making friends. If it's your school, your community, then that's where people sort of have this kind of mindset about referring, because they have a good experience. And the best experience that people tend to have is meeting other people, and it's a social thing. The biggest, most talked about website on the planet today is Facebook, and it's because it's a social platform. It's not that we necessarily love Facebook, but we love the fact that we connect with our old friends. Here I am talking to half the people I went to school with that I haven't seen for years. I've connected up with them through Facebook, and thank you, Facebook. It's great. Facebook is the reason that I'm able to share my sort of nostalgic memories and go back and connect with people that I haven't seen for years, and I probably would never have seen again had it not been for Facebook. So the strongest, okay, a couple of things here. One is that your referrals will come from the people who are your fans, your biggest fans. The second thing is that you want this to happen because that's when you know your business has truly made it, when people are referring to you. You think about music, bands, etc. They make it when their fans are out there recruiting other people to become fans of their music. So that's what your aim is to get your current students to become fans of yours. So keep asking yourself and asking them indirectly. You don't have to ask them directly. Ask them indirectly, what is it going to take for you to become a fan, for you to be out there and wearing my shirt, talking about how good my business is, talking about, you know, why other students should join here. Can anyone give me an example? It could be a band, it could be you know, a product, a business. If I start, let me start. It looks like Ben has joined us here now. I'll start with Ben. I'll bring you into the conversation, Ben. Ben, what's an example of a business where people rave about it?
Not including bands, because that's all you put into my head.
Yeah, you can include bands. A band is a business.
Well, yeah, I would say bands, but anything.
Name
Up a bit, I'd say things. Well, the most recent one for me was Primus, because they're so different and fun that I thought it's mainly things that I think my friends will like that I'm thinking of, and bands are the main things that I'll refer to people. Maybe films, mostly kind of art stuff.
Okay, cool. I want to use an example. So let's go with Primus. What is it about Primus that made it okay for you to refer, and would you refer it to everybody?
Probably not, and it probably suits all of the things in this category, because the things I like are often quite weird. So if I referred them to everybody, they'd probably think, "What is that?" For example, have you heard Primus?
Yeah, I know Primus. And look, they're not that weird that people aren't out there they've got a big following. Let's face it, they have a very big following. So as weird as they may be, they're not that weird. They certainly appeal to a certain audience. You know, weird is that quirky little group that sort of play in the local scout hall somewhere that nobody knows about. They're just totally out there. But yeah, I know what you're saying by weird. It's more, that might be part of what they're trying to do, to be remarkable.
Less mainstream, to be sure.
Yeah, you know, bands like, you know, Kiss, when they first came out, were considered weird and not mainstream, and then they became mainstream. And that happens a lot, where these bands sort of start out left of center, and eventually they become sort of mainstream. Even Metallica were like that when they first started. You know, they were not mainstream, but then they became mainstream. Even Rolling Stones were kind of the rebels of the time. You know, Beatles were the mainstream group, but Rolling Stones were really the guys sort of doing things a bit, you know, not certainly not in agreement of most of the adults of the time. It was the kids that clicked in with it. And that's fine, because it's the target audience that you're aiming for. That's what we're looking for, is to sort of gear what you're doing towards a particular audience. It's much harder to please everybody, or a large sort of demographic, than it is a narrow. And most products start with a very narrow niche and a narrow audience, and from there they expand out, because what you want is, you don't want a lot of people who are lukewarm about what you do. What you want is a few people who really love what you do. That's more important. Let me use a classic example, probably the best example, is that if you look at Apple Mac only hold about 10% of the computer market, yet they make 46%, I think it was, of the profits in the market. So they have the lion's share of the profits, yet they have only a small percentage of the actual whole market. So all the other companies who are kind of squabbling over it, they're slicing their margins to compete. They're really, and people who, the biggest justification that people have for buying anything other than a Mac is the price. That's the number one thing they say. Oh, Macs are too expensive. So they tend to go for PCs because they can't justify the cost of a Mac. But where if you talk to a loyal Mac user, they will justify it all day long. And they probably don't even consider a PC. There might be a PC out there that's just as good as the Mac that they've got, but they don't even know, because they don't even go look. And that's the difference. And that's what you want, is you want people who are so happy and so loyal to you that they're not even going to look at the competition. They're not even going to consider the competition. So this is really important, because once you start doing case studies for yourself, you'll start to see the things that you're a fan about, and the things that they're the things that you're recommending. Now, you don't have to be crazy. but you do. It just has to be something that you're passionate enough about to tell someone else to share it, and that means you believe in the product enough. So what we want to talk about now, and I'm going to run this out right through, and we'll do it for the whole hour here, and that is to look at how we can get our students to really feel this way, to feel passionate. So let me throw it back at you guys. I'll start with you, Joachim. So what is something that you could do to get your students to be more passionate about your lessons? What's going to excite them?
Maybe sorry.
Go.
Maybe look at their, you know what, and put it and get it into the lesson and show them some examples of how to you know, using the skills, how to get to play that song, for example.
Yep. So you're just saying, show them how to use the skills to the songs that they want to play. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So, David, what's a thought or an idea that you might have?
I mean, the first thing I tried is one, try and build a rapport and relate to the student, and to find the niche where you have to relate to them at their level, wherever they are, whether they're a complete beginner or, you know, a shredder. You've got to relate on their level, and then you need to find something that is interesting to them as an individual and tie it to that musically. So if I had a student this week, she's very into Christian music, so we're changing some songs around and we'll learn some of the basic songs that she wants to learn around that, but then fit the skills to the song and not the song to what she wants to do. So relating to the ability, the teachers I always remember that were good at this were enthusiastic, and they managed to talk to me at my level wherever I was at that point in my life.
Brilliant. That's great. But relating to the student where they're at, and I think that's a key one, is that we can subtly intimidate students, and that's quite common, where they will feel that we're sort of almost looking down at them from this kind of pedestal, and that doesn't, that can be off-putting, you know, and it can often be very subtle. You don't notice you're doing it, and that's why if you can get down to their level, as David said, that for many students is really makes a big difference. Something that I would add to that is that we want to be giving them this vision of the future, because what excites and motivates people is not the present. What excites people is about the potential of the future. We can't be who we want to be, who you know, the person who needs to practice another 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours or 10,000 hours in the future. That person is not here today. That's someone who's got a lot of hours ahead of them before they do it. But if we can sort of show them that this is where you're going to be, this is where you're going, that excites them. It's the potential, and that's why people often at concerts, musicians, especially us as musicians, we get excited, because when we look at someone on stage, we actually see ourselves. And this has been quite well documented, is we see ourselves in that position one day, having all these people who adore our music and screaming. So we put ourselves in that position, and we have that empathy, and that's a very strong human trait, is that we have this empathy. So that is what allows us to gather, watch someone in a concert and come out inspired. And the same as with your students, is that they want to be able to see that future, and that's what you really want to give them. You want to give them that hope. You want to fill them with hope, because it's the hope that drives them to do the practice, which then motivates them to want to come back next week. So if your student, the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway that I can give you today in terms of this, is to make sure that your students walk out of every lesson full of hope, full of the potential that they've got. It doesn't, the skills that you give them, the lesson that you teach them, which is where most teachers focus the majority of their attention, is not actually what matters, because the information that they retain out of your lesson, by the way, half an hour lesson, is not that much. They maybe retain a couple of things, but the method itself is laid out in such a way that they've got it at their fingertips. The internet's full of information. Everything you could ever want to know about guitar is on the internet, but what they don't get from the internet, and what they really want from you and need from you, even if they're not verbally throwing it out there, is the hope that they can actually be that guitar player that they hope to be one day. So if you can fill them with that each time, then that's when they're going to start raving about you and feeling good, because it's the emotion that's driving them. It's that feeling, I can do this. Now, I do this with you guys. I spoke to a teacher just yesterday who was, just to kind of give you a quick background, his expenses are a little bit higher than his income. Now, he's been going for about 6 months, and he came back to me and he said, I'm really stressed out, I'm worried because I don't know, here I am working hard and I'm not even breaking even. And I had a look at his numbers and everything, and we went through it, and it turned out that he's earning about $30,000 in a year now in student fees, and he only started 6 months ago. And I said, look what's happened. 6 months ago you were earning nothing from teaching. Now you're earning $30,000 a year. So in another 6 months, where are you going to be? $60,000 a year? $80,000 a year? Can you see the trend line here? Okay, your expenses are high, but that's okay as long as you're on the right trend line. And I sort of went through that with him, and he came back to me and he said, I feel so much better now. Thank you. He said, I was just having a bad day. I missed out on a few inquiries. He had a bunch of inquiries. He just hadn't converted as many as he liked. He only converted, I think, 1 out of the 6. So he had a really bad kind of couple of days, and he was down on himself. And I said, but before that, you were enrolling, 70% or 80%. So it was just a bad week, and still don't give up on those people. They may come back to you again. Yeah, they may just not be ready to enroll there and then. So this, what I did is gave him the hope again, and actually used the realistic figures and showed him how far he'd come. And I said, anyone else who'd had a pay rise of $30,000 in the last 6 months would be ecstatic in their job. That's where you've come. Now in the next 6 months, that's going to be profit, because he's only actually 3 students off breaking even. Another 3 students he breaks even. And then every student after that is, yes, you guessed it, profit, profit, profit. And I'm talking living profit. I'm talking savings. That's money that he could just put in the bank and save, but he can reinvest that. So it was about giving him a different perspective, because he was caught up in the moment, and that's what your students will do. I remember being like that with my guitar teacher, going, I had a really bad week, I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. The other kid at school, he's just, shredding all over the shop, and I'm just flat out trying to get these couple of riffs together. And he would say, Dave, look how far you've come. Remember that other kid at school's been learning 4 or 5 years longer than you. You just started, dude. You only started 3 months ago. You're being way, way too hard on yourself. And the progress you've made in 3 months, and you're right. Okay, cool. That's what I needed most from my teacher. I knew the things to practice. He obviously, of course, he was teaching me the things to do as well. But it was that giving me hope and motivation, and that's what he was giving everybody. And we're out there like evangelists, out there promoting his name and what he was doing. So that's really the key to getting referrals, is making sure that you're succeeding. And if you're not succeeding, if you're not motivating, then you're not going. That's going to really affect. It doesn't matter how good the knowledge that you give your students is. If you're not, I remember one teacher that I had working for me some years ago, and he was a brilliant guitar player. This guy was amazing, but he was a terrible teacher. Because what he used to do was he'd show off to the students, but he did it in a way where, look how good I am. You're never going to be this good, dude. You'll never be like me. And that's what they took away from it. And so his students would drop out like flies. And they would say to me, look, brilliant guitar player, but I just don't feel that I'm getting anywhere with his lessons. And what they were really saying, because I've observed his lessons a few times, is that they were feeling demotivated through the way that he was doing it. So it's got nothing to do with your skills as a guitar player, nothing to do with your skills, even your knowledge of guitar and the kind of things you're doing. It's got everything to do with the way people feel after each lesson. Fill them with hope, and they will start referring you. Now, what I'll do is go into some more practical things here that you can do, because we've sort of talked about that and what the main goal is, but I want to give you some real practical things that you can do to get referrals.
Can I ask a couple of questions, David?
Yes, Ben, sorry.
When David was talking about changing songs for a student who's a fan of Christian music, I was wondering what your thoughts are on balancing like strictly following the method to tailoring some songs to make it funner quicker. Because I've been using the Chuck Berry one because that's a good example that only uses the top 3 C, G, and G7. Yep. But I've been wondering, because every time I spend 10-15 minutes on that, I think I'm slowing down the progress we go through the method, and obviously the method is what's going to make them get the skills, but I have to make them motivated and hopeful enough to continue learning. So that's one of the balances. And then the other one is, in that same lesson, I was just as they came in, I'd had a gap before, so I'd been practicing some Rodrigo and Gabriella, and just as they came in, I kept playing a little bit, and their eyes kind of lit up a bit, and I was like, I'll just keep playing a bit more, and I played basically the whole song for where I was to the next 2-3 minutes, and the whole time I was like, they seem to be really enjoying it, and maybe this is worth it, but I'm also feeling like I'm wasting their lesson time by just playing something that I've been practicing.
Yeah.
So see how I'm balancing those two things at the same time.
I know what you're saying. Look, here's the thing: is that you're a performer, and your whole lesson is a performance, and the idea of the performance is to both educate and inspire your students. And following a strict, structured method is not what we're trying to do here. The idea of the structure is that it creates. It keeps you aware of moving forward, and it keeps the students aware of moving forward and the pace that they're moving and what they're doing. So when teachers operate, the opposite extreme, having no structure, no method, then the lessons just become this kind of confusing, improvised, week to week kind of mess, and that's where you've got the structure there. So what happens is, even while you're talking there, you're aware. When you're playing, okay, I've taken an extra 2 or 3 minutes here to play this song. The students are enjoying it and they're inspired by it. That's great. But you're at the same time you're aware, hey, I better get back on track here. Otherwise, I'm going to waste all the lesson and nothing will get done. So that's what the method does. That's what the structure does. It gives you that. Now, if I go to what we're talking about with David, David is doing exactly what I would recommend, in that he's using songs, examples from their ultimate song list to teach skills. So it's not that you sit there and teach them the whole song and take, that's what unfortunately most teachers do, and that's okay, but it's not what we do, and that's what makes the difference between G4 and most other teachers, is that we're not here to teach you the songs. We're here to teach you the skills that you can then apply to learning any songs that you like. I could sit here and I could teach you a new song every couple of weeks. We could work on this song, and then once we got that, we go to the next song, go that. And there is a theory that some people say, yeah, but they'll pick up the skills through learning those songs. And yes, that sometimes that happens. Of course, when you learn a song, there's certain skills that you'll pick up from each song. But if they're not understanding how the skills are applied, and that this is the skill, and not sort of looking that these are the building blocks to and this, if I sort of diverge a little bit here into science, they're finding this. I'm quite interested in a lot of science as well, and they found things like the brain, as complex as it is, it's actually built on some very simple models to start with. The brain develops from this very simple model, and they found in nature this is the way that most things work. They start with a very simple structure. Nearly everything in nature starts with a simple structure, and then it goes out and out and out from there. There's a guy named Stephen Wolfram. If you check out him, he explains it very well, and he's kind of he's a scientist, but a physicist, but he's a mathematician mostly. And what he does is he takes a very simple kind of maths formula, like just a couple of things, and then he shows how it expands out into very complicated kind of arrangements, and that's how nature works. And it's the same in music. Is as we think about it, if you said to someone, how many songs can you make out of 12 notes, the chromatic scale? You know, probably, you know, we know music, but probably if you thought about, you know, how many different arrangements can you make from just these 12 different tones, people go, oh, I'd probably be exhausted in a year or two. It just goes on and on. You know, billions of songs keep getting written. But it's even worse than that. Is you narrow it down to the pentatonic scale. You narrow it down to the 1-4-5 chords, the 1-4-5-6. How many songs get written with just those chords? And this is the thing, is that once we can teach students that these are the essential skills, and these skills apply to the songs, and understand the skills, and then you can work out any song. That's really when it all starts to come together for them. So I'm applying the 80-20. That's really what it's all about. So I know these are the songs that you want to learn. These are the songs you like. I know this is what inspires you. I can sit here and teach you each song, but I'm not teaching you music. I'm just teaching you how to play this particular song. But if I teach you the skills using examples that you're familiar with, that'll both inspire you but also teach you what you need to know. Does that make sense, Ben?
Yeah, entirely. So do keep that kind of thing going on, even if it's not. Because well, I guess the thing in the back of my mind was the songs on the checklist. I haven't actually touched on at all yet for those particular students.
Okay.
So I was wondering if the songs on the checklist were there as the songs that you do use to point out the things, or if you should also. But yeah, good.
Good question. Yeah, you can use, you really use whatever you like. The songs are actually the least important part of it. The songs in the G4 method, that is, are the least important part. The idea of the songs is simply to teach them memory, song memory. Yeah. It's still a skill. That's the thing is you know, people say to me, why these songs? Well, songs are really irrelevant. It's about song memory, because when you get up on stage, you need to be able to play these songs without having to you know, have a piece of music in front of you. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's get down to some of those practical examples of referrals. So a question I'll ask Ben Gunn. Ben, what do you think is, when do you think is the best time to get a referral? This is a trick question.
All right. When?
When's the best time to get a referral?
When's the best time? Most times I've received referrals when, you know, during the lesson or at the beginning of the lesson, they'll say, oh, look, I've told my friend, you know, there's a chance they're going to give you a call. That's when I mainly referrals.
Okay, cool. Good answer. The actual best time to get a referral is when you're enrolling the student. That's the time you're most likely to get a referral. You will get referrals further on, and we'll go into that. But that's the best time, because that's when people are kind of, if they've made a decision to enroll, it means that they've decided what you're doing meets all their expectations. So, and they're excited, they're looking forward to the lesson. So that's when they're more likely to be able to tell a friend. And it's also a safe time for them to tell a friend, because when they tell their friend, they don't have to say, I've been going to this guy for guitar lessons and he's really good, blah, 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 blah. What they say is, look, I've just signed up for these guys, they've got a special offer. So they're telling them the information at the beginning, which is where you want them to be sort of passing on information. You know, for $99, I get 5 lessons, I get all the materials, and they offer a money-back guarantee, blah, 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 blah. The guy seems really cool, he's just down the road, I'm starting this week, why don't you start as well, and then we can both join the same group. That's when you're most likely to get a referral. So whenever you're enrolling a student, it's not just good for you, for your business, it's good for them as well, because if they got a friend who's joining them and learning with them, then they're much more likely to stick with guitar long term. They're much more likely to get to that kind of 5th week and look forward to joining a group with their friend. Whereas if you've got them just joining a group with 4 strangers or 3 strangers, then they're more hesitant. They're more worried about it. Get them in pairs, and you're much more likely to convert them into groups. And that's what I did. That was one of my main techniques, was to get them to bring a friend at the same time that they started not learning. I still did the intro privately, but often I'd book them one after the other, and they'd come after school, or the parents would come together, the parents would chat in the waiting room. So you're building up this kind of community as well, and getting it to happen at that time. And you will be surprised that when you start asking the question, the simple question of, do you have a friend that wants to learn? Because now is the best time, because that way you guys can learn together. I can put you in the same group once you've finished your intro. That's the time that you'll have to get a referral. And they'll go, well, yeah, he's got a friend at school, or, you know, blah, 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 the neighbour, whoever, his brother, sister. Let me check with them, and we'll get back to you. So that's the time to do it. And if you can get in the habit of doing that, then, you know, Emma was a genius at this. So if you want to talk to Emma about how to do it, she's the one who's going to be able to help you. So I really recommend that you join Emma on a Monday night and go through it with her, because she'll show you the technique that she used. And the most important thing here, it's not just about your business, it's about the fact that the student is much more likely to stick with it if they've got a friend who's learning. You know, McDonald's increased their profits back in the 70s, I think it was, by a massive amount. I think it was like 30% increase in profits, by one simple question, and that is, would you like fries with that, ma'am, sir? So these little things that you add to your presentation are going to make a big difference. Right? So that's just one thing. Sorry, David, I know you've got to go, so whenever you want to go, just...
No, that's it. Actually, I had a question, but you just answered it, so I'll take this time. I'll bow out now. I've got to split. I'll catch you next week. Thanks, guys.
With you. All right, see ya. Okay. So that's the first thing you need to do. If you do that, I guarantee that you will increase your referrals. And guess what? If they bring a friend, then when you enroll the friend, you can also ask the friend the same question. Do you know anyone else who wants to learn guitar? Because now's the time. And that's where you'll start to see you're enrolling. You know, I had a run there where I think there was about 6 students altogether, and it was unfortunate because I had a group of 5 boys who all were in the same class at school, and the 6th kid wanted to join them as well, and I ended up putting him in there just because they all wanted to be in there, the 6 together. But from memory, I think I ended up moving one of them to a different group, just because, mostly because he wasn't keeping up, I think. But it was this. It started to really go from there, where, you know, he went from 1 student, I ended up with 6 students. So just keep that one in mind as you may think. Now let's sort of roll it forward into the lessons and sort of take it how you can get referrals from there on. Can anyone give me any other suggestions? How would you get a referral in your 5-week intro? What kind of things would you do or say to get a referral at that point? Because that's your best time, right? The first 5 weeks, you've got them one-on-one, you've got time to talk to them. Once you get them into the group stage, you don't have as much time to be trying to promote referral. So what sorry, Jürgen, yeah?
You can give a friend 5 free lessons, perhaps.
Okay, yep. Give them, yeah, a 2-for-1 deal. Excellent. Yep. Give them a voucher. Get them to bring a friend along to the intro. Okay. Just say, if you've got any friends who are interested in guitar but they're not sure, bring them along. You're not going to teach them. They can just observe. They just get to sit in the corner and observe and watch. Right. So if you can do that, that will make a difference. Another thing that you can do is even video the lesson and then whack it up on YouTube and give them a link to it. And you might say to them, you know, things have changed a lot. You know, when YouTube first came out, or even when sort of video first came out, people were, oh, no, I don't want my child on video on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. This is changing a lot because people are realizing, well, everybody's on YouTube. It's not really a big deal, and you might get 20 views. But what you can do is even just video yourself, not them. So you say, I'm going to video this lesson. If you don't want to be on the camera, no problem, but I'll video this. That way you can refer to it at home. You can go over this same lesson at home. So you're giving it to them like a bit of a gift, and you might do it in for each student. And this is kind of an idea that I had, is for each new student, you video the first lesson so that they can then replay it at home. You upload it, you keep the rights to it, upload it on YouTube. Again, maybe just video yourself if you like, and then say when they're at home, then they're more likely to actually share it with a friend, to show that friend, oh, this was my first lesson, and then they get an introduction. You don't video every lesson; you can just video that first lesson. So that's another way to do it. Probably the most important way that I got referrals after that initial round was to be getting into what I call the family circle, and I think you guys have probably come across this before. But it's talking about their family, asking them questions, not too personal, but just trying to get to know them a little bit better. Do you have a dog? Do you have a cat? What school do you go to? What other things do you like to do? You got a brother or sister? What do they do? Mum and dad? Does dad play guitar? Does mum play guitar? Anyone sing? You guys watch any TV shows like Idol or just get to know them a little bit, and by making that connection, you build more trust, and you get to know what's important to them. And by knowing what's important to them and building that kind of trust, you will find that it's easier to ask for referrals, or easier to talk about, okay, your sister plays keyboard, or your sister likes singing, or whatever. Has your sister showed any interest in guitar? Does she like guitar? Would she like to try guitar, etc.? Bring your sister along. And that's what I used to say to a lot of my students if they had a sibling. Bring them along, because parents will sometimes say, "Oh, I've got the other child. Well, I won't bring them in because I know it'll probably interrupt your lesson. We're going to go off to the shops when we'll be back." And I said, "No, come in, sit down." And if they had a brother or sister, and I would always throw a question, would you like to play guitar? And so give them a guitar, even to sort of have a look at, to hold, to try. Do things like book in your intro students for the half an hour, but make sure, try if you can. I know it's not always possible as you get busier, but that's okay as you're busier. But if you can, book them in at a time where you've got the next half an hour free as well. So that way, if you've got, they bring a sibling, you can run over time and let the sibling have a bit of a go as well on the guitar. So you're really getting to know them and know the opportunities that exist beyond what. This, by the way, it's not all about selling. It's not about trying to be this, pushing to make more money to increase your bottom line. It's about looking for the opportunities to build a community of guitar players, and because the more people who you bring into it, then the more likely that each of those students are likely to stick with it. So it's some people call it the network effect, but if you think about it, you go back to your own childhood and you think about the things that were trends. When I was a kid, there were things like, when I was really young, marbles. We all had marbles, and we'd play with marbles in the dirt. And this became almost like a currency where we would trade marbles. We'd say, well, I've got 2 small marbles or 3 small marbles for your big marble, and so you do a swap. And every kid had marbles. We're all into it. We all wanted them. And that was when I was very young. But then later we got into footy cards. We all had football players and the cards, and we collect the cards, and then we'd play at lunchtime these games with the cards, and everybody had them. Every kid had them. Every boy especially. So what you're trying to do is create this kind of trend around people learning guitar in your area, and it's so many benefits to it. It's much better than sitting on video games or sitting in front of a TV. Learn a musical instrument and learn guitar and play guitar, and by bringing those social groups together and you sort of promoting that, then you're not only going to do well in your business, you're going to actually do something good for the community. So if you think of it in those terms, then you don't feel like you're just trying to sell people. It's not, I'm just trying to sell as much of my lessons so I can get rich and sit up on my hill. It's not about that. It's about doing something good for your community. And by being a profitable business, you actually become a very good role model for your students, because seeing a broke guitarist, you imagine a parent taking their child along to some guy who's teaching guitar in his you know, 1-bedroom flat that he's battling to pay the rent, and it smells bad. He's you know, he's just getting by, still wearing the same clothes he's been wearing for the last 15 years. You know, he's got to go around to mum's to get some food every second night because he just doesn't have enough for food. You can imagine that a parent looks at that and goes, well, I don't exactly want my son to grow up to be like that, or my daughter to be like that. So if you are running a good business and you've got a good living, a good career as a guitar teacher, then you actually are also a very good role model for parents. And that's what you want, is you want to be successful as a guitar player. There's many ways to be successful. It's not just about being a rock star. That's just one way. And being a teacher, or you know, owning a guitar shop, or repairing guitars, whatever, any business related to it's a huge business. The number of people who actually make money from playing guitar is about 1%. The other 99% are doing other things. And this works in most industries. You know, the stars, if you like, or the celebrities are only a very small few. So, I think, do you guys have any suggestions of referrals? Anything you want to add?
I would say, because I'm having an open day, so I did mention to everyone, say, you know, having this open day, if you have any friends or family, you should come to the open day. It's also for a charity, so you know, it'd be great if you can come.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, any reason to bring them together, like an open day, a workshop, you know, Joachim's doing this charity event, which is just brilliant. You know, people love spreading news about a charity, so he's actually doing something good for the community, but he's also getting to promote his business, so it's a win-win. And that's what you're looking for, is those win-win situations. And it's very easy to share that. You know, people don't feel like they're being pushed or sold on something. They're being promoted towards a charity. So it's good, fantastic. You know, I think thinking of Ben Gunn, in your case, you're a performing musician. You know, playing gigs all over the place. I think looking for ways to tie that into what you do as well is a good thing. I don't know if you can get some video footage of you playing some of your gigs. I know that you've won some awards. You know, having some video footage of you actually collecting those awards. I don't know how they present them to you, or you know, even just people in the industry who are sort of saying things about you. Anything that you can do to sort of promote how well you're doing is a bonus as well. So for those of you who are also performing musicians, showing that side of you gives your students more to talk about. You know, my guitar teacher is also a touring musician. You know, he won an award, and he's got an album coming out, and all these things that gives your students things to talk about and things to share.
Yeah, that's definitely been one element that gets my students excited when they do discover that part about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do share it with their friends. Yeah. Yeah,
because you're living it. You're not just talking about it. You're doing it. So it is. It's great. And even if for those who are just playing the occasional gig in and around town, or doing an open mic night or anything, these are still things you want to share. Anytime that you're performing, share it with your students. Let them know. Let them know that you're active in the music community, and anyone else that you know. There's if you've got friends who are out there performing, playing in bands, doing things. Again, what we're trying to do here is create a community. We're trying to bring them into the whole thing of playing guitar and what it means. If you go back to why you play guitar and why you started and why you play today, you can put it all together as a story almost, to where I play guitar because I get to hang out with friends, I get to jam, I get to learn new material, I get to tour, I get whatever it is that you do, whatever is part of your story. Share that with your students and share that with your community, and help to build the community around learning guitar. If you think of it more in those terms of you're building a guitar community, then that will really inspire you to think more about getting referral business. Avoid getting locked into this kind of one-on-one thing with a student of where it's just about them and about what they want to be able to play. They're going to get that in the process, but if you connect them to the community, then they're going to get swept up in the community. And yeah. I sort of grew up in a part of Sydney, Cronulla, which I think a lot of you guys know, where surf culture was huge. Everyone was into surfing. And so, it was almost like you had to surf, and funnily enough, I didn't. But everybody, but I was into the music. So my father's a diver, so I used to go diving. So when I went to the beach, I, whack on the dive gear and jump in the water. That was my thing, rather than surfing. I wanted to be under it rather than on top. But I still got it, and just about everybody I knew was wrapped up in the surf community. So there's this real kind of thing going on. Even if you're not into it, you tend to get swept up in it, and that's what you want to do with guitar as well. Sort of create this, and you'll tap into other communities. That's another thing which I'll just touch on quickly, is that you will, for instance, where I was in Cronulla, a couple of the guys who I met with through the school when I first started there, the teacher put a rock school together. Then through them, it expanded out into other communities. The surfers, and a lot of them played guitar, of course, and became part of our sort of group as well. And then there were the guys who were, the kind of nerds, if you like, the academics, and they were also into music, a lot of them. So music touches a lot of groups, and as you sort of expand, it can bring them together. And that was what was happening for us. And as you bring on students, find out what other communities they're connected to, because that's really your bridge into a whole new group of people who could sign up with you. All right, we've still got about 10 minutes. So that's covered. Any questions? Any challenges you guys have got apart from the referrals?
I have one.
Yep.
So there's been a few parents, so they've been having the child been having lessons for a couple of months, and then they're complaining that they are tired of nagging them to practice and get up to practice, and they just they don't want to continue because it's too much work for them to get them to practice at home.
Yep. Okay. So you want to know what to say to the parents when they say, look, I've got to nag the child all the time to do the practice.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Have these parents got the parent guide?
I don't have a parent guide, and no, they do not. No, because they've been for a few months. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. All right. So the parent guide is fairly new. So the first thing is that I'd give them the parent guide, and and not just ask them to read it, but actually try and isolate what it is, what's going on, where's the challenge. The other thing is with parents is to be realistic with them in that your child is not going to want to practice guitar any more than they want to take a shower or brush their teeth or go to bed on time or turn the TV off or the iPad off or whatever. It's just because learning takes concentration, takes energy and effort, and that's something that you've got to set up and encourage them to do. But there are ways to do it positively, which we cover in the parenting guide, and that is playing games, turning it into fun. But you've got to balance it because it'll never be perfect. You rarely, until the child takes to it, which could take years. You just don't know when that's going to happen. And you may have seen that Jay and I have been talking about this a bit recently, and Mia has recently started picking up the guitar by herself and doing a bit of practice herself, which is great. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's great quality practice, but she's at least sort of picking it up and sort of fiddling through and doing a few things. But for 2 years now, from 3.5 to 5.5, where she is now, she's never done it. This is really the first time it started happening. But still, when I do the practice with her, she still will have her moments. It's not like she is keen and eager to practice every time. It's still, okay, let's do the practice. Oh, I don't want to. I don't like practicing. or you know, she tries to do all these other things to sort of divert from it. But I am resolved to doing the practice. It's going to happen no matter what. So it's really about, we either, you know, I try the positive way, and then when that doesn't work, because it doesn't always work, because children are very quick to work out, you know, where things are coming from, then we have to go to, all right, we either do it, or you know, you go to your bedroom, and that's it. There's no TV, there's no extras. You know, if you don't do your practice, then you don't get any of those things. Why I don't have to do it? Well, it's up to you. We either do the practice, or you go straight to your room. So that call has to be made sometimes. It's not like every time is perfect. But the thing is that when you explain this to parents, and you kind of give them the idea of how it works, then they're more prepared for it. Now, when a parent says to you, I don't want to have to nag my child all the time, that's the same as a child going, I don't want to practice. Right? It's the same thing. There's no actual difference. If it's them saying to you, I don't want to have to nag my child. Well, you need to nag your child. Someone's got to do it. You know, unless you bring them to me every day, and I'll nag them, then someone's got to do it at home, because your child is not old enough yet to do it by themselves. And relatively, if you look again from kind of a scientific point of view, the gestation period for human babies is longer than really any other species on the planet, certainly more than any other mammal. Most animals, when they're born, within a fairly short period of time, are independent. They're able to do their own thing. Not the case with humans. You know, we Homo sapiens, we're still at home, some in their 20s, and so there's a very long period of this. And one of the kind of theories behind it is that children need to be brought into the culture, into the rules, into the way that we operate, because we're kind of very cultured and civilized, if you like. And so this is where we do need to work with our children. It's not just nagging. Nagging is probably not the best term, but we need to keep nudging them in the right direction, and we need to prepare them for life. If you took a child, especially a child under 5, and you sent them out into the world, they wouldn't last long. Okay, they'd probably die. And so that's why the role of parents is really important, and that we really need to work with our children and develop them, grow them. Now, when a parent says that they don't want to be nagging their child, I'm sorry, but that's part of the job. That's your role as the parent at home. So if you can make that clear in the beginning, you're less likely to get the parent to come back to you and say, I don't want to be nagging my child. Well, because you've already said to them, you're going to have to. That's how it is. So let me just go to the other guys. I'll go to Ben Gunn first. Ben, how do you handle this situation? What do you say to parents?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. You know, using using the strategies you've set up, like having the being encouraged every time they come in, and you know, the first thing I'll ask them, how many days did you get in this week, or how many minutes of practice did you get in, and then also I've got when you've got the parents in there as well, you know, it's about them getting excited and you know, having them you know, involving them with it as well, and then talking to both of them at the same time, and just creating excitement and urgency in how important it is about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I still have had situations where at the end of the day that the parents in a certain situation where they're unable to give the student the time that they need, that's needed for the course to be successful. And unfortunately, I make a call and say, well, it's not working, so unfortunately we're going to have to leave it there. And that was a really, really difficult decision for me to make. And just looking back and retracking and seeing if there was any way what things that I could have done to improve on that. But you know, I really established from the start and expressed the importance of it. That but yeah, it's still work and still something that's going to be a learning and growing experience for me.
Cool, cool. So I think what you said there is that you've instilled it in the beginning, and you're also offering them some benefits of learning. And I think parents, we're trying to weigh it up, which is something that kind of Ben's reminded me here, is that they're weighing up the benefits. It's like, okay, I'm nagging my child, but what's the benefit of this? Okay, they can play guitar, but is there anything else to it? And if you can be sort of promoting the benefits of learning music generally, in that just quote some of the research. It's on our in the Evernote, by the way, if you need some of this research. Things like children who learn a musical instrument tend to do better at school. They tend to be more social. They tend to be less likely to become a criminal. They're more they have something that can carry them through life, because music is playing an instrument is something that is good to what's the term? How can I use it sort of gives an identity of yourself. So I play guitar. This is part of who I am. It's part of my identity. So it's something that sort of is comforting in a way. It's got some very solid psychological benefits. But have a look. There's quite a bit of research that they've done on learning musical instruments, and if you can promote those to the parents as well, then they know there's more to it than just actually playing guitar. I mean, the one of the things that they found not long ago is that people who play a musical instrument produce more grey matter in their brain. So it develops certain parts of the brain. It develops certain parts of the brain which use the fingers, and that would not be developed if you didn't play a musical instrument, which leads to other benefits as well. So, yeah, knowing those kind of things and knowing the benefits adds to it.
Just leading on from that, with some of the older students that obviously where they're in their early to mid-teens, where the parents are sort of separated a little bit from them with their practicing. You mentioned before about exciting students, about their potential and building hope for them and seeing where, the goals are for what they're achieving. Is there any ways you can elaborate on ways to do that? Yep,
definitely. Tapping into whatever their dreams are, what's inspiring them to want to play guitar is where you're going to get your clues from. So a good way to do this, because everybody's different, as far as what they're interested in and what they're doing, but a good way is through imagery, and that's asking them things like, do you have any favorite musicians? Do you have any favorite bands? And then just sort of asking them to describe the band and describe the musician and what it is they like about that musician, and that imagery in their mind takes them to that place. And that's what you're trying to do. And you can do this exercise with anybody in almost any situation. You can make someone hungry by asking them, what's your favorite food? Describe to me what your favorite meal would be. And people start to describe the meal and they start to feel hungry. And that's why, you see these ads that, McDonald's, KFC, all this, they do, and they show, people eating chicken or whatever, so and pizza, all these things, and so it gets people hungry. The same is with music and building that and saying, okay, so I'll go back to my teenage years, and I would have said to my teacher, what do you want to do? I want to play guitar. That would have been my standard answer. I just want to play some songs. What songs do you want to play? Maybe that time, Stairway to Heaven. Okay, cool. And by asking me, about the band, Led Zeppelin, have you seen them live? Have you seen any footage of them, etc.? What bands have you seen? What bands did you enjoy? Then I start to see all these images, and so I start to get excited about the whole thing. And that's really the way that I would do it, is by building up the excitement and letting them know that the difference between that person and where they are is practice. It's just a matter of time and practice, and you'll be able to do what they do. If you want to be on stage and be famous and be a rock star, there's more to it. But if you want to play like they played, have that level of skill, then that's attainable. There are some players who it's going to take a lot longer to get to that level, but in most cases, as we know with most of the people they want to be like, it's attainable within within a reasonable period. Back then when I was a teenager, imagining that I would be able to play any Led Zeppelin song would have just been a dream come true. Now it's long past. It's very easy, but that's the kind of thing that we want to sort of build in their minds, is just them to see that, because we often see it but they don't. We can see the path that from them to get to here to there, but they don't see that path. They've never traveled the path, so they don't know it. And that's why it's really important for us, and as one of you guys mentioned about, I think David, about getting down to their level and remembering where they're at, remembering what it was like when you were there, just starting out, and how, thinking your fingers could never do that. Watching someone's fingers move quickly across a fretboard and go, there's no way my fingers will ever do that. That's how I do it, Ben. Anyway, it's. I think everyone has kind of a slightly different twist on it, but my technique is to use imagery, which largely comes from NLP. I don't know if you know NLP, but if not, just check it out. But NLP talks a lot about neurolinguistics, which is what it means, neurolinguistics programming. It's about putting images into people's heads so they see, where they're going. Maybe sense?
I just lost a student this week who I've had for nearly 12 months, a teenager, and it was just the whole time it seemed to be an uphill push. Just I said, what are you listening to on the radio? Oh, not much. Who's your favourite band? Oh, I don't really listen to music that much. And I think the push was mainly from the parents' side, and the parent has called me and said, they just haven't practiced, and they just don't seem to want to continue. And I said, they kind of need to take ownership and have a passion for music if they want to keep on going. And she actually put me onto the student on the phone as well, just to explain to them, that everything's okay. It's just they need to, if they want to continue, they just need to have that passion and drive and that sort of thing. And so I had I let him go, but I think hopefully I did everything that I could.
Yeah, look, two things. One is that you can look at a student like that and you can say something like, we've got to find the passion for you to play guitar. There's got to be a connection. Sometimes it's not music that drives them. There are people out there, and I've taught quite a few, who are not actually driven by the music. A lot of young guys are driven by girls. They want the girls. They think it's cool to be a guitar player. It's the image. It's for lack of a better example, but there was the crazy guy down in Tasmania who, remember, shot all those people. He had a surfboard on his car because he wanted people to think he was a surfer, but the surfboard was actually glued to the top of the car. It never came off. He never surfed. He just wanted local people to think he was a surfer. But he was a bit crazy, of course. But people take up guitar often for the image. They just want to be cool. This is part of who I am. I'm not into music. I just want to be a guitar player. So sometimes connect that, and that's okay. Whatever drives them to practice is what we're looking for. Because sometimes on the way they discover a passion for music. And so you might sometimes have to dig outside of the music. What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you want? You might want to have girls, you might want to be rich, you might want to be cool, whatever it is that he wants, if you can tie it into practicing guitar. So that's one side of it. But the other side of it is, again, applying the 80-20 principle. Is it really worth putting all your time and energy and effort into this guy when you've got these other people over here who deserve your time and energy? Yeah? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So you've got to make the call. I'm not saying give up on people easily, but there's sometimes you've just got to look at the 80-20 of it, and you've got to say, well, I'm better off putting my time into these people because they're actually going to bring other people, and they're going to promote my name and my business, and in the long run, it'll be much better. I'll be much better off. And I believe in the balance there between the two. It's the same, as the operator. Don't just give up on you because you're not putting in 100% every week as a member. But and I do my best to try and keep you inspired and keep you going and moving forward. But there's a point where I think, well, I'd rather put my time into these guys who are really keen, and I'd rather sit here with you guys for 2 hours a day. If you're really keen, then be spending my time trying to flog dead horses over here. Yeah. All right. So we'll end it there. We've done our 90 minutes today, which is great. That seemed to go really quick. So so on again tonight if any of you want to join. But otherwise, I'll see you next time.
Great. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, guys.
All
right.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
See you this evening, David. Bye, guys.